Well, last week I made a video on my car first aid kit, and then I watched a video on Dynasty Prepper's channel, and they were talking about how people are willing to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on guns and ammo, but complain of a medical kit that costs, $100 or more. So a lot of emphasis is always put on security, I guess, with guns and knives, and not as much on medical security. And I thought that is so true, because like if I make a video on EDC or on my bug out bag, it gets probably triple the number of views that it does when I talk about something medical, or like in this case, my car first aid kit. Yet it's very, very valuable. Now, I read something from the CDC I'm going to read for you. So, according to the CDC, 83.2% of adults had contact with a health professional within the last year. There were 125.7 million outpatient hospital visits and 928.6 million physician office visits, with 300.8 visits per 100 persons. So people are going about 3 times a year. And studies from the AMA show that 70% of these visits are unnecessary. They could have been mitigated by a phone call, email, or text. Wow, 70%. And to me, what this shows is how dependent we have gotten on the medical system, and how we are unable to do many of the things that 100 years ago people did at home to solve a lot of these medical problems. Many of you know that I own a medical billing company, and we usually bill only for specialists, but we did have one primary care client, and I was amazed at how many people that went there for what I would consider unnecessary visits. They had diarrhea for one day, or the beginning of a sore throat, or they came down with a cold, or their child had pink eye. All of those type of things, unless they got much, much worse, is not something you need to go to the doctor for. So again, we have lost, just like we've lost so many of our survival, in the wood skills, we've also lost a lot of our medical treatment, home remedy skills. Now, my mom was born in North Dakota in 1907 on a homestead and basically in the middle of nowhere. And my grandparents had 8 children. So they lived very simply. And it was a day trip by horse and wagon to get to a doctor. So of course, my grandma had to treat things at home and use a lot of home remedies. Now, I'm not discounting that a lot of people died in those times, because they didn't have the medical resources that we are blessed with now. In fact, my father, who came from a family of 7 kids, he lost a brother to gangrene when he was only 7 years old, and that wouldn't have happened nowadays. But people learned how to take care of a lot of common medical problems at home. They did not seek a medical professional. So I've got to ask you, what would you do if there was no doctor available? Now, I'm not just talking about an SHTF situation, where the world is in Mad Max type conditions. It could be when your car breaks down and something happens in the middle of nowhere, or you're camping or hiking, or you get trapped in your house by a really bad ice storm that takes out any cell or landlines, and you're unable to leave the house to go seek medical attention. So my question to you is, what would you do? Do you have resources available? Are you a little knowledgeable about problems that your family has encountered or could encounter? It's really, really important. Now, I wanted to share with you today some of the resources that I have. I did go to Patriot Nurses Workshop 101 and 102, and I gained a lot of information from that. I also have the hard copy of Where There Is No Doctor, and I also have the digital copy, and I have the digital copy of When There Is No Dentist. But this is a great resource to have on hand, and the digital copy is absolutely free. Combat Medic, definitely getting into some things that generally you wouldn't see unless maybe you are in a Mad Max situation. And then by Doom and Bloom, I have their Survival Medicine Handbook. This is a great book to also have on hand. And of course, I have numerous first aid ones, just quick resource like I showed you. I always keep one in my car first aid kit too. Just great to have in case something happens. And then I have natural first aid, backyard medicine, and prescriptions for herbal healing. And I have a lot more other guides too. And of course, John had sent me the Prepper University, so I also have resources on that. And I do keep resources digitally as well. But I like having a hard copy book just in case. Now, when you go into something like the Combat Medic field reference, let's see. This is friction blisters. That can get bad. What happens, field sanitation, very important for hygiene. Let's see. Suturing, pulmonary problems. I mean, it goes into a lot of things that you don't get always in a normal first aid book. So this is really a good guide to get. And this guide, primarily it was written for, I think, third world countries, and it gives you sometimes ideas what you can use if you don't have the medical resource we have here. What can you use instead? So that's a great resource also. Yes, kitten. You want to come in? I'm sorry. My kittens always love, I should say my cats always love photobombing. Her name is Kitten, even though she's 14 years old. So she has to be part of it. But recently I had a terrible episode of diverticulitis. I hadn't had it for 15 years, and I decided I didn't want to go into the doctor. I had a mild fever, but it did not last more than a night. If my fever would have continued, I would have sought medical attention, because of course then it can be an infection that's spreading. But instead, I went 4 days on a completely liquid diet. I had less than 100 calories a day. And I worked 3 of those days, and that allowed my colon to relax, and I gradually reduced food, and I recovered just fine without going to the doctor, without going on antibiotics, and all of that. So, like 5 years ago, I had never gotten bronchitis, but I was sure by all the signs I had bronchitis. So everybody at work is going, well, man, you got to go see the doctor. And I said, why? A doctor can't help you with really bronchitis. If it lasts longer than 3 weeks, I will. Otherwise, they're just going to tell me to drink plenty of fluids and bed rest. So, people just run to the doctor. Now, if you have other conditions with that bronchitis, of course you have to seek medical attention. And when my kids were little, generally they only went to the pediatrician for their annual visit and to get vaccines, except for my daughter, who would get strep quite regularly, and we did get antibiotics for her strep. But at work, people are bringing their kids in for a mild rash, a fever that, lasts less than 4 hours and is not health damaging. I just see people going to the doctor so frequently for reasons they don't need to, but also because I think they don't have the knowledge to take care of things at home. So I'm making this video to encourage people to gain medical knowledge, to read resources, to buy books, or you can get a lot of great books, used ones at Goodwill or bookstore for 50 cents or something, and it doesn't matter if they were printed 20 years ago, they still are great resources. The other thing you might want to do if you have more elderly relatives is talk to them. What did their parents or grandparents do when something occurred? And they might tell you some great home remedies, or anyway, you'll hear some great stories. And that's another resource out there. So I just want to encourage all of you to go out, seek this knowledge, and make sure that your medical preps are equal with your security, your guns and your knives, because I think that's very important, because someday your life might depend on it. This is Prepper Potpourri saying please subscribe, share the knowledge, and thumbs up if you like this video.